Welcome to another episode of Roxy's Ride and Inspire. Well, to my Rawcast, where I take you on my creativity walks. Today I'm on a trail. I just rode with a few friends, and that's what this episode is about. It's about this trail. It's about what happened on this trail. And so if you hear me walking, then, or if you hear my steps, if you hear the wind, if you hear anything, that's because you're literally out on the trails with me. Ooh, I almost slipped there. So you're literally out on the trails. It's super loose, super gnarly, super steep. So generally in this Rawcast, I take you on my walks and I share my experience as a full-time mountain bike skills coach and mental trainer to bring more awareness for the necessity of skills. And I share my in-depth knowledge about skills, and I also bust myths about mountain biking skills and about the acquisition of these skills based on science and many years of pro experience working with some of the leading coaches in the world, not just in mountain biking. And today's episode is going to be a little different because I'm going to share about a topic that I'm very emotional about at the moment, actually. And it's a series of events that have occurred in the last days and weeks that have been accumulating and that have made me very emotional. And I want to share this because I think the entire mountain bike community can profit from this. I publish this podcast because I believe that every human has the power to influence his or her environment and thus the world. It's like throwing a pebble into a pond and you see those ripples unfold, and that we can either bring good ripples, or we can bring bad ripples into the world. And it's actually a daily choice. And this is what I live by, and that's why I want to share this podcast, and that's why I'm addressing this topic today, because I'm hoping that this episode will help you to consider things a little differently that are still very popular in our mountain biking world, and that this will influence our sport positively. And I really hope to contribute to make mountain biking safer in general. The truth is, I do not think mountain biking has to be dangerous. I think it is dangerous because most people think of it in a way and practice it in a way that causes dangers. But I don't think it has to be dangerous. There were two situations specifically in the last weeks that have caused me to become very angry, to be honest, and also sad and also frustrated about the sport in general and about how knowledge is being imparted, and that I just thought I have to address this in the podcast because I know there are a lot of people out there listening to this. I also know there are a lot of coaches out there listening to this, and I know that each one of us, so you, yep, that's you listening, and me, we can make a positive shift by taking responsibility for daily small actions. The first situation I want to share with you and I want to talk about is something that just happened recently. I was out riding with friends, and one of my friends brought along a complete beginner. This lady had a history in pro road biking, so she was super fit, like physically. It was her first day on a mountain bike, and we were out with e-mountain bikes, so it was her first day on an e-mountain bike, and we went to ride super technical trails. I mean super technical, like not just little technical, these were super technical trails. And it was the first day of this lady out on a mountain bike, and the first day on an e-mountain bike as well, which is heavier and a little harder to maneuver. So let's call this lady Linda. She had only ridden road bikes and gravel bikes in her life. And of course, being an ex-pro, she was physically fit. She also had amazing bike handling skills in general, but of course her technical experience was limited to road and gravel bikes, which is a different world. So as we were riding uphill to the trails, my friend, let's call him Thomas, said to Linda that the trails we're going to ride today are going to be very technical and that she may have to walk some sections. But her being an ex-pro, of course, she was very, let's call it motivated, and said, oh yeah, she'll be fine. So then another friend in the group, in his late 50s, let's call this guy Peter, said that the main difference between mountain bikes and gravel bikes is that with a mountain bike, you can just take the straight line. You don't need to worry about line choice, and basically speed is your friend, and you just need to stay put on the bike, and that you'll adjust and learn with time by riding. and that her coming from a gravel bike, she'll find everything very fluffy and easy, and she doesn't need to worry about line choice. And this is a very common misconception. I hear it a lot. It is not true. Of course, you will learn some skills out on the trails. You'll learn something called soft skills. But by surviving a trail, staying put, allowing speed to be your friend, you're not learning the movement patterns, i.e. the skills that you'll need in the long run. These movement patterns that are called hard skills, and I already have an episode where I dive into the soft skills versus hard skills more deeply, and I'm going to link it below. They need to be built off the trails in a safe learning zone. So in general terms, on a trail where your focus is to survive the trail, to reach the bottom of the trail, then you're in survival mode. So all you can do is you can apply the movement patterns you already have automatized. So the habits you've already built, and you'll basically either make it down the trail in one piece or you won't with these habits. This is survival mode. So it's basically like throwing someone into the water, watching them somehow keep their head above water and saying, all right, cool, that's how you learn to swim, well done. But it's not the way you learn to swim, right? Everyone knows if you really want to learn to swim, you need to learn the movements, the stroke, and then slowly you're going to take your swimming skills into deeper and rougher water. And then you'll be able to swim and improve, right? And it's exactly the same with mountain biking. So no, you are not going to learn skills by just riding, by surviving trails, and by reaching the bottom without crashing. By doing that, you'll build soft skills, so the skills you need to adapt to the terrain, but the hard skills, the movement patterns itself, the patterns that you need to execute in succession to be safe, you will not learn those on trails because in a survival mode, your brain is only executing skills that are already automatized. This means by riding, you're applying and repeating and thus further ingraining skills that are already automatic, because when your brain is in survival mode, it will not experiment with new things. It will not be able to build new movement patterns, which is what learning movement actually is, right? You want to build new movement patterns. So if you're new to the sport and you already have movement patterns from another, perhaps even similar sport, you'll repeat these. You'll try to somehow survive, and then you'll ingrain these patterns further and find out by crashing if something didn't work out. But it does not need to be like that. There is a safer way, and I am here to tell you that exactly that is my full-time job. I teach adults to safely progress their skills without crashing. So that's the first thing that pissed me off, to be honest, because Peter was telling her, speed is your friend, you just need to hold on to the bike, you'll be fine. And there is some truth to this, of course, because yes, speed does stabilize the bike, and if you are very brave and you have a lot of travel and you just hold on to the bike, you will be fine for a very long time and you'll survive many, many trails. But by doing so, you're ingraining habits that will limit you in the long run. As you may know, I'm a fan of practical examples, so let me give you an example for this. Linda is used to braking with 3 or 4 fingers because she's used to braking on her road and gravel bike, which is of course very different than a mountain bike. So braking with 3 to 4 fingers doesn't allow her to safely grip the handlebar, and neither does it allow her to control the disc brakes finely. So by doing this out on the trails repeatedly, she develops compensatory habits to make up for this disbalance, and then she adjusts her position in a negative way. And then everything that happens on the trail, like when her rear wheel skids, she of course adjusts her position or the speed to correct it, because that's how she does it on the gravel bike. But she doesn't adjust the cause of the problem. So she doesn't only take her index finger on the brakes, because why should she think that this is the cause? This is something that she doesn't even think about. For her, 3 to 4 fingers on the brake is absolutely normal. So why should she change something that for her is automatic? So on this day, I didn't want to be this overbearing mom. So of course, I didn't share my expertise. And also, I found out over the last years that I should not give feedback without being asked for it. After all, I am riding out with my friends. So I was like, okay, I'm going to ride behind her, I'm going to shut up. And now thinking of it, like from the top of my head, I can think of 5 to 6 situations, or probably even more, where she was just about to crash. Like she was literally at the verge of crashing, but somehow she rode it out because as an ex-pro, of course, she has that bike handling skills and she has very good soft skills. But by doing so, she started to feel safer. She started to ride even faster because after all, she had been told speed is your friend. And then she did crash in a very technical section where speed was not her friend anymore because it was a very steep, very loose, super chunky section. Then as she rode in pretty quickly, she couldn't decrease her speed because she didn't have skills to brake. Then she got on a line that was really bad and then she crashed. And then my friend Thomas said, oh, well, yeah, you crashed because you were on the wrong line. And then I got super emotional and I got pretty pissed off. And yeah, like now in retrospect, it wasn't the nice way to tell him, but I was very emotional. So I said, well, no, if you really want to know the cause, you can ask me later, but it's not what you're saying. It's not because she was on the wrong line. It's a whole different thing. And I know I was pretty emotional. It was not okay, but I learned a lot on that day. I should have just breathed. But, I was super worried about Linda and I had seen this coming and I just hadn't said anything because I didn't want to, So I am pissed off because I hear this a lot. I hear so many times that speed is your friend and you just need to let the bike roll and that crashing is part of the game. But I'm here to tell you it's not. It is the reason why so many people out there crash. And it is the reason why so many people out there develop fears and then book me as a mental trainer to magically resolve their fears. And it is the reason for mountain biking being dangerous, but it doesn't have to be. The reason is, frankly, because people are riding beyond their limit too fast. They're not controlling their bike, and then crashing starts to become part of the game, but it does not have to be. And the cause of her crash was not her hitting the wrong line. The cause of the crash was that she wasn't in control of the bike in the first place. So she got on the wrong line because she wasn't braking in a controlled manner. She didn't have a good body position, and that piece of terrain was just way beyond her limits. And by taking novice riders into this type of terrain, basically throwing them into water and seeing if they can keep their head above water, allowing them to ride this techie terrain, and telling them that speed is your friend, and telling them that you just need to take the straight line and crashing is part of the game, that is the problem. And that is just not the solution. And this is not just a one-time event. I hear this a lot. But you don't have to learn by crashing. You adapt by crashing. But the adaptation is usually a compensatory habit. It's not skill. If we all just learned by riding and crashing, we'd probably all be Rachel Atherton or Aaron Gwynn. You learn movements as an adult by understanding them, executing them repeatedly in a safe learning zone. Your brain needs to feel safe to try new things, and then turning them into an automatism by applying them and then taking them to a performance or survival zone. And if for you, mountain biking is about this adrenaline rush, about, I almost crashed, oh my God, then that's okay. Well, who am I to judge you? But let everyone decide for themselves. And don't take novice riders into terrain where they're just going to crash because it's too technical and they can't yet decide whether this is doable for them or not. And stop promoting this crash culture, because especially women who don't have the strength to just ride it out or roll it out when they crash, we may not want this adrenaline rush. And also many men out there may not want it either. Maybe more people out there are in this to enjoy nature, and maybe they like to have control. Maybe they're in this to keep doing this lovely sport out until they're 90 or older. You never know. My oldest client, seriously, is 84 and he is loving it. He is in control of his bike. He doesn't crash. He loves it and he knows his limits. So if you like that rush, I mean it, get in a roller coaster, because the main difference, if you do this on a roller coaster and you're like high on your own supplies, you're enjoying the adrenaline rush, and literally our brain produces the same chemicals as you do if you take an ecstasy pill. So it is an amazing feeling, but do it on a roller coaster, because the main difference is if you do it on a roller coaster, for example, you're technically safe, like 99.9% chances that nothing's going to happen to you. But if you like this, let's call it almost death experience and the rush and the screaming, you're safe there. But in mountain biking, if you're riding that way and if you have that rush all the time, you're not safe, and the chances of crashing and hurting yourself are real. And the cost of error is just very high with mountain biking. We cannot deny that. And if you always ride like that, then you will crash, you will hurt yourself. And if you're like, okay, yeah, I just want to have fun on my bike, I want to enjoy nature, I want to feel safe, I don't want to feel scared, then don't ride like that. I'm serious. Crashing does not need to be part of the game. What to do instead? Well, start practicing in a safe learning zone. Start to build the movement patterns that you'll need out there. And I've already addressed which movements these are exactly in a different episode. I'm going to link that episode below. And then once you've built those movement patterns, you can increase the difficulty of the trails gradually, like step by step. It doesn't need to be sketchy. And I'm serious, you can improve your riding safely without crashing regularly. Let me just tell you from my own experience, I've been a full-time mountain bike coach for over 14 years, riding for over, I think, 17 years now, and I hardly crash. I haven't crashed for years, and still I've improved my riding every year because I practiced regularly. And what makes me sad about this is that I have the drills and they're right at your fingertips. All you need to do is you have to follow my proven structure from home. And I even have a free track stand course, and all my courses are way cheaper than visiting skills clinics. And you'll actually allow your body and brain to build the skills. But the problem is that people have unrealistic expectations. They want to ride the most technical terrain in no time. They want to get out there, ride Gunnar. They want to jump or impress themselves and their friends with skills, but they're not ready to put in the practice. Let me give you an example for this from one of my latest Instagram posts. I posted that I have a free track stand course and people can send me a message to get it. And I received about 170 or more messages saying, oh, I want to be able to track stand. Oh yes, please give me tips. And oh, I really need that skill. Please, please, please. And I sent every person the link. And about 30% of these people actually signed up. And this is a free course, yeah? So it's not something I'm selling. People don't have the money or they don't want to spend it. It's a free course. So I asked some people, it's like, hey, just be honest with me, why not? And they're like, oh, well, wow, 20 minutes a week? Whatever, someone else said I'd learn it in 10 minutes. Or practicing every week? No, I just really can't do that. So bottom line is people do not want to commit to put in the work. At the same time, however, they do say, I want to be able to keep my balance and slow speed skills. I want to nail those tight switchbacks. I want to feel safe and confident in Gunnar. I want to have control. I want to be the pilot, not the passenger. I want to crash less. But they don't want to commit to putting in what it takes. They don't want to learn it, to be honest. They just want to be able to do it. And that's a huge difference. If you want to learn something, you're committed and probably even stoked to put in the work. But if you want to be able to do something, then you just want to swallow a magic pill and magically be able to track stand, be able to ride Gunnar, jump, whatever. But if you're not ready to put in the work by practicing the quote-unquote boring stuff, which is your foundation for success, then I'm sorry to break it to you, but it's not going to work. You're gonna keep crashing. And whether it's boring or not, actually, it's your decision and interpretation. You know, I don't know a single amazing rider out there who did not practice a lot. The problem about social media is you just see the end result. You see the amazing skills, but you hardly ever see the hard work they've put in, the hours and hours of practicing they've put in. And yes, children and youngsters learn just by riding. They learn by playing, goofing around, and also crashing, and by adapting, because their brain works differently. But we, as adults, we need to practice in a structured manner. We need structure, we need safety, and we need correction in our movement patterns. And all this needs to happen in a safe learning zone, on very easy trails, in parking lots, in your garage, and spaces like that, not out in a survival mode situation. We need step-by-step safe progression to build these skills. And if you do want them, then I have them. All you need to do is you have to start them and practice them right at home. If you don't want mine, that's totally okay. But then get a professional coach, someone who acknowledges that you need to feel safe, that you need time and that you need structure, but put in the work, because you're not going to magically overnight be able to perform the skills. You're not going to magically crash less just by riding. You need to put in the off-trail work to build the on-trail confidence. Let me say that again. You need to put in the off-trail work to build the on-trail confidence and competence. So please trust me on this as a full-time coach. I'm not saying this because I want to sell you anything. I'm telling you this because it's essential to improve the overall level of mountain biking and to make this sport safer, which I am super passionate about. And this is what this whole thing showed me. I wouldn't be as emotional about this if I weren't as passionate as I am. So I have another example, actually. This is a group of 3 dudes in their, I think 40s, 45, who got in touch, and they're like, oh wow, we want to be able to ride this technical section on our home trails. Here's a video of us attempting it. And I look at the video and I see that the cause for them not being able to ride that section is in their absolutely foundational skills. They don't have braking control. They have a very bad body position. They're very stiff on the bike, and they've been compensating for a lack of skills with speed. So they're not looking where they should look because their brain is sensing danger and their body is showing them. And so I tell them, okay, yes, we can work on this and you will be able to ride that section, but we won't be able to do this in a day. You guys have automatized skills in the last years that we'll need to overwrite. We'll need to build other movement patterns and habits, and this will take dedicated practice over a longer period of time. And also we're going to do this in a safe learning zone, so not directly on the trail, because that's not where you will be able to change these habits. And they're like, no thanks. Yeah, we're going to look for a coach who will work directly on the trails with us, because that's where we want to do this. And this misconception is really harming the industry. It is making the sport more dangerous than it has to be, and too many people are crashing because of this. So I'm here to tell you, please do not be part of the problem. Don't tell people speed is your friend. And if they're not in control of their bike, don't tell people you'll just learn by riding. Don't just put new riders into a dangerous situation and let them survive the trail and think that this is the way to learn. And don't tell people, oh, well, you were just on the wrong line, if you don't know what caused them to get on the wrong line in the first place. And if you are scared out there on the trails, then please just start working with drills in a safe learning zone. You have mine right at your fingertips below this episode, or get in touch. You can start to feel safe. It's up to you. So please don't contribute to the fear and crash culture. So remember, my free trackstand course is below this episode. Get in touch if you have any other questions. And of course, I'll also link the other episodes that go more into the neuroscience and science of what I said in this episode, because, well, you can shoot the messenger, but that's not going to change the facts. Yes, I know I'm one of the few coaches addressing this, and many people are saying the opposite and working against it, but I'm just sharing how our body and brain works. It's not me inventing stuff. So if you'd like to support me sharing this knowledge, support my podcast, then do become a patron or buy me a coffee, because it's people like you who make this podcast possible. That's all I've got for you today. I hope you found this helpful. Sending you much love from Spain. I am Roxy.